morning, good afternoon and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie's Photography. Today I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey to see how we can produce a wonderful image like this. This was a recent trip to Paris and up early in the morning, 5 a.m. to see the sunrise, to capture the River Seine. Absolutely flat, calm, beautiful. But one of the big problems we always have is how do we have the street lights on and also have the sunrise, because very often the street lights will turn off because the light levels will rise before it becomes bright to give us those sort of beautiful orange skies. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at how do we take a blue hour image. So remember, this is shot in RAW, so it's just the data, so we've exposed for the highlights. We will recover the shadows in a little while. I'll take you through that. So blue hour there with the lights on, and then so we go back to there, and then we have the golden hour just starting here. Again, remember it's RAW, so the image very flat. We will bring the color back in a little while, and none of the street lights are on because it's got brighter. Beautiful flat water, lovely to see. So we will bring those two together, and we will aim to produce a combined image. Golden glow, it's beautiful, isn't it? So I'm going to take you through how we do that. We're also going to add the sun as well, because the sun wasn't actually in the shot, so I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's begin. We're in Lightroom. We're going to go to our blue hour. We're going to go into the develop module, and we're going to have a look at this. Now I'm not going to straighten the perspective just yet, because the other image was shot at the same position. We can sort out the levels a little bit later. But it's important when you're shooting these shots, firstly to expose for the highlights. So this is underexposed by about one stop. We can actually have a look to see. So 8 seconds, f8, ISO 50, trying to keep the longest possible exposure I can have without having an ND filter on, just to make sure we get that water absolutely perfect. So we're going to take this image. We're going to firstly, we can open up the shadows, see where that takes us. We can always change it later. I'm going to bring down the highlights a little bit to about 50%. There we go. And I'm going to warm the shot using temperature. I'm going to take the temperature slider, and I'm just going to bring that up until it starts to feel a little bit more golden. That looks quite nice about there. Pop in a bit of vibrance as well, just to help that along. So boost the exposure a little bit there. That looks quite nice, and I'm going to just bring up the contrast just a little bit, just see where we are. So we can zoom in and have a look at the detail. There we go. So that looks crisp, really crisp and sharp, which is lovely. So I've got a bit of colour in there. That is looking quite nice. I might even just have a look and just see. No, I'm happy with that at the moment. Bring a bit of magenta in as well. I think that's probably just to help that colour a little bit. So small adjustments, nothing too serious, just a few basics there. We're just going to do our black and whites as well, just to be sure. So holding down the Option or Alt key, and then moving the slider to see where we are. If we go down, you can see the whites disappear. If we come up, you can see. Now it's okay to have the lights themselves hitting the very peak, so we can push that until we start to see more. We don't want that, so we want to come back just slightly from there. And looking at the histogram up in the top right corner, you'll see that the top triangle hasn't illuminated, so we've not pushed most of the data over there. The darker end we are clipping ever so slightly, so let's have a look at the blacks. Again, hold down the Option or Alt key, and yeah, we've got a little bit of black showing there. So we can, a little bit of black is fine, always worth having that absolute contrast from one end to the other. So that's looking pretty good. So we're then going to go over to the other golden hour shots. We didn't move the camera stayed in the same positions, and these are shot about 45 minutes roughly apart. Of course you want the street lights on really when the sky starts to come up like this. So what we're going to do is going to try and bring this color up in the sky. So I'm going to open the shutters just a little bit, not a lot. I don't want to see too much, because it's the sky that's important to us here. And we're going to raise the temperature again and bring that color back. Really lovely. And we're also going to bring up the magenta as well, not too much. So and then maybe a bit of saturation that brings those yellows in. Just adjusting that back just slightly there, don't want it too much. And maybe a bit of vibrance as well, just to bring those colors back. They do look nice actually. So also we have to be careful we don't go too far with this orange here. So we can always go to the saturation HSL here, and we can always bring the orange back just a little bit, just to take, so it's not too much, and maybe bring the reds up a little bit more. Let's try bringing the yellows down. Yeah, so just want to find somewhere that's a nice balance, and the blue up here in the top right, that's nice. So we can boost the blue here and get that color wheel effect of going from the oranges through to the blues, which is very nice. I'm going to raise clarity on this shot. Remember, it doesn't matter about what we see down here, because what we're going to do is we're going to bring these two pictures together. What we're interested in is the sky. That's the important thing. So we're going to boost the clarity for the sky. And I'm going to do my black and white. It's the same, holding down the Option or Alt key. Just going to see where we are with that. So don't want too much. See, that's too much, you can see. So we just bring that back a bit. There we go. That's about right. And the blacks. Well, blacks is fine because they'll be down the bottom. So that sky's looking very nice now. So what we now need to do is take the first image that we did here and this second image. So we hold down the Command or Control key on a Windows PC, and then we select just the two images there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over into Photoshop so we can combine these two images. So we're going to right click on one of these images here. We're going to edit in, and then we're not going to go straight to edit in Adobe Photoshop 2020. What we do is going to go down here and we're going to open as layers in Photoshop so that we get two separate layers, one for each. So we'll click that, and it will take us over. I've got to update my Lightroom. That's it. So let me just bring that up on here. Going to Photoshop. There we go. I've got two screens here, so I was moving it from the other screen over to this screen. So we now have in layers, we now have two layers showing. So we have the blue hour with the lights, and we have the golden hour without the lights. So the first thing we want to do is actually combine these two images in alignment. It's really important that we align them. So we highlight both. So one's already highlighted, you can see the one at the top. The one below, we're going to hold down the Shift key and click once to make both layers illuminated. Then we're going to go over to Edit, and we're going to go down to Auto Align Layers here. So we click that, and we get a little dialog box that comes up. Now, to be honest, the auto projection function works really well. You don't really need to get into more detail. We can later, on another video, we can explore these, but for now we're just going to click auto, And what it's going to do, it's going to align those two shots together. There we go. As you can see, it's aligned them. So if I click the front one off and the back one off, you can see that they combine very, very well. So we've got that sorted. We now want to create a mask, and the mask will give us the ability to allow the parts of the layer behind the golden hour layer to shine through into the golden hour. But to do that, we have to remove part of the blue hour sky and water to allow that to come through. So at the moment the blue hour is on top and the golden hour is behind. If I switch the blue hour off, you'll see the golden hour is behind it. So with them aligned, we now have the ability to mask out one part of the layer to allow the other layer to come through. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch the rear layer off for now because we're going to work with the blue hour, and we want to remove the sky. It's nice and bright, so we've got a good contrast, so that gives us the ability to actually remove it. And we're going to use the quick selection tool, or W, which will give us the ability to select part of the mask. So I'm going to take quite a small brush, as you can see here, and I'm literally going to start to draw with the quick selection tool away from the building, so a centimetre or two above, and I'm going to literally just draw along just so it pops in where the buildings are, as you can see. And I'll go about halfway and I'll stop, just let it compute that, and then I'll carry on over this next bit. And what you'll find is eventually it will realise you want the whole sky. There you go, and it selects that whole area. Now it's not perfect. You can see that the sky is still showing through the tree, and I'll show you how to deal with that in a moment. But we need to do the water as well. So we're going to take the same approach. We're going to start in the water, working our way along about halfway. There we go, that jumped right the way across. So we've got all of it. The only thing is it's taken the tree's reflection and the boats on this side. So to undo some of the quick selection, you can hold down the Option or Alt key, and the positive in the center changes to a negative, and then you can work within the mask area. So I can now work my way along inside the tree there, just to get that, and there's a little bit on the boat, so that's gone now. So I now have a rather coarse mask, which we can now refine. But before we do that, I want to apply that mask with a layer mask onto that layer. So you can go to this little rectangle here with a circle in it, which is the Add Layer Mask, and you can click that whilst you're on that particular layer, and you'll see that the mask will appear. It's quite coarse. There's bits of the trees and the buildings that have not been captured, so we want to deal with that. So what we're going to do first of all is we need to swap this layer mask around so that effectively we can see the buildings and we can work with them. To do that, we'll click the invert function, which is in properties. Now if properties isn't showing, you can go to window and then you can tick the properties box, and then the properties dialog will appear. And whilst clicked on the mask, you can click invert and it will swap it from one to the other, as you can see there. So now we're ready to go along and refine the edge. So what I'd like to now do is add the golden hour back in. So we've got a coarse layer now, so you can see that the golden hour is shining through onto the blue hour, but we still have blue hour mixed up in the trees and in some places along the buildings and the trees over here. So what we need to do is we need to refine that edge. So whilst you're clicked on the layer mask there, we can then go to select a mask. Okay, so when you click select a mask, the select a mask module will open and it will give us some tools, and one of those tools, important tools that we're going to use, is the refine edge. So over here in the top left you'll see the tools that we get when we're inside the select and mask, and the second one down is the refine edge brush tool. Now we can zoom in to the area we want to deal with. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key and wheel my mouse to effectively get a little bit closer, not too close. Hold down spacebar and click the mouse to move where you need to be. So with this tool, I can make the brush for the refine edge tool bigger or smaller using the square brackets, which are to the left of the return key on your keyboard. And I can take a reasonable sized brush, and working from the sky inwards, I can start to deal with effectively the sky not being included in the mask. So from the sky inwards, working back and forth. Now you'll note that from one layer to the other, which is appearing, that the tree is actually in a slightly different position, and that's because it's 45 minutes between the shots. So you will get an ever so slight blurring when you do that. I don't need to go onto the other area because we're not going to show that. So I'm just going to make sure that we get the edges in here the same. So we just get those refined in. That looks pretty good actually. Just going to put a little bit over this tree here because it's got a slightly different contrast. There we go. You see that brings it down. So holding down the space bar, I can move the image. So here we've got quite a nasty edge to our mask. So working from the sky inwards, I'm just going to pick up on where it was blue, and I'm going to come right down back to this area here, and then I'm going to paint, still holding the mouse down, just paint that area back in, so that using the refine edge brush tool will deal with that whole area. So let's see how that worked very well. I'm going to move up this way using the space bar, brush a little bit smaller, just going to work my way along this little edge here. There we go. A little bit in the bridge there, so smaller brush just to get that little bit in the bridge there so the sky's the same colour. There we go, that's very good. So work my way just along this edge, refining the edge is what we're doing. There we go. Lovely. Now you'll note that the light here has been caught, and so it's coming through from the golden hour where it's not on. So what we can do is we can go over to the tools here, select the brush tool or B, and we have a small brush with a positive in the center, and we can literally just click to put that back. So we're bringing that through the we're effectively stopping the golden hour coming through, putting the blue hour back. You see down here on these lights also you have a little bit of the similar that's going on, so we can effectively just click on those to bring them back so they look right. These light fittings here are the same. That's missing, the reflections are missing because the mask didn't work particularly well. So we've got ourselves no hardness at all. That's the important thing on the brush when we're doing this. So effectively when we paint them back in, you can see where they are, and you can just click those back in like that. That looks all right. Now you do see that there is a little bit of the mask coming through on that edge there, so we can go back to refine edge, nice small brush, and just come in, make sure that we're on very little hardness, and then we can just go around that light like that, bringing that mask back in. You see that's doing that quite well. So just want to get in here, we can see that the colour coming through. That's very good along the edge of this building, because you can see the blue hour pushing through from behind, so that helps. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again. So we're going to continue along this edge. We're still in refine edge tool, and we're going to just make sure that we cover the areas that we can see are still showing the blue hour layer coming through. There we go, look at that, looks really good. So last couple of little bits here. You can see under the bridge here, this is this sky needs to be put back in, so we're just going to work our way around there as well. Put that back in there, looks good. Same on this one. we go, that's better. Again, along the top of the buildings here, you can see there is some blue showing through a little bit there, so just going to run along the edge. There we go, just to capture that. So this is starting to look pretty good as a mask. Same along this edge, so we're just finding our way along the edge and refining all the way through. There we go. Need to put these lights back in. That's pretty important. So we're going to zoom in here. We're going to select the brush, remembering that it's on 0% hardness, and we just want to paint those back in, and we will go back over with the refine edge tool in a moment. So I just want to make sure I've got those in there. These ones are a bit black over here as well. Just make sure they're back in. So let's just do that. That's it. Because it's important that we have the lights. That's what we're really looking for, is that the lights in the golden hour. So I'm going to go back to refine edge. I'm going to take a small brush, and I am going to just paint back in around those lights, just to make sure that we get the edge in this. See how that comes up. Not bad. A couple of little things just need to be sorted out there. Make my brush a little bit bigger. Around there. That's it. So it does take a little bit of time just to get it right, but it's worth the effort to just refine the edges of your mask, and that means that it won't show when people look in detail at your pictures. They won't see where you had the mask and how it came through from one to the other. They'll think it's just one picture, which is what we're after. So just going to do these lights as well. That looks good. Same around this one. Almost there. Slightly smaller brush just to get in here. Around there. And the last one's over here. So detail, for me, detail is really important. That if you do have this blown up to a large shot, you want to be sure that there's no errors showing through. I'm just going to go back onto the brush just to touch that slightly smaller brush there, just to get that bit there back in. Same there, just to get that bit back in. That looks good. There we go. So we'll just finish off these edgings. We're back to refine edge, reasonable size brush. Just want to go along this edge because you can see that blue tinge in there. There we go. And then working our way down. That's it, just grabbing that edge all the way through. There we go. So I am zoomed in quite a lot because I am looking for that detail making sure that we make my brush a little bit bigger. I will zoom out just a little bit so we've got a bit more there we can see. So I'm just going to cover those areas to make sure that that blue hour edge is properly defined against the golden hour. And I think we have got it. Let me just check up on the top here, a couple there just to run along this edge. The top of that tree, as you can see, and the top of the building, there we go. So I think we have it. So I'm going to zoom back out, and we've got our lights back and we're comfortable. Then we just hit return to come out of select and mask and go back into the main window. So what we've managed to do, I'm just going to zoom, going to click on the little magnifying glass here and then select fit screen so it fits back in the screen here. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to combine these two layers back together again, so I'm going to hold down the shift key and highlight the bottom one so both of them are illuminated there, and then I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to merge the layers together so it's one layer. Then just to finish off in Photoshop, a couple of things to do. Firstly, I'm just going to crop this so that we're inside both the images so we don't have any overlap there. Just going to bring that back in. We do some fine tuning back in Lightroom. So once I'm happy, I'm going to hit return. That's got the crop where we want it. Now there's just a couple of things that need tidying up here. Again, I'm going to zoom in, Option, Alt key and wheelie on the mouse, the wheel on the mouse. There's something on the water there. So I'm going to grab the spot heal brush, or J, and I'm just going to go over and just make sure that disappears. A couple of little marks on the water there. You can just see a few things around, some sticks, just tidying that up. So moving around, holding down the space bar, just taking out any little marks on the water. You can see there's a few here. So you can just click through. And it may not seem like much, but if you do have the image blown up into a large poster or canvas, these things will stand out. So it's best to just make sure, as far as reasonable, that you've got rid of anything that you can see. There's a few more little bits on the water. So using the spot heal brush, you can really quickly move around and just make sure. A couple of bits left over there. Look at one there, stick there. Yeah, that looks better. Now the one that obviously we don't like, unfortunately Notre Dame was being repaired when we were there, so there is a tower crane there, so we will want to try to get rid of that tower crane, just take it out the line there. So a couple of ways you can do this. You can just go straight for a hill brush and just see how well it does. Well, it leaves a little bit there, so I'm just going to Command or Control Z to undo that. One I do like is the patch tool. Now it's normally within the spot healing brush tool. If you right clicked on that, you'd have options. I tend to like to separate them out because I use them a lot. So I'm going to grab the patch tool here, and I am literally just going to draw around what I want, catching the wire there that's below the tower crane, and I'm just going to draw around like that. And what I can now do is I can slide that up. You see how I did that? I just slid that up out the way. Command or Control D will undo the dancing ants. There's a little bit of a blemish there, so we can go back into the spot healing tool. Actually, to be honest, we could use the stamp tool here. Take a bite from up here using the Option or Alt key, and then just tidying that up. Just a couple of little marks there, which have now gone. That's pretty good. A couple of lights I missed when I was doing my select and mask. Those need to be illuminated. So the best way to do that is to take the stamp tool and Option or Alt on another light fitting like that, we can move that over and literally plonk that on there. Same again, so just put that on there, and probably just want to get one more, make the brush a little bit smaller to get that one next to it. There we go, they're back. So one at the top of the mask there as well, a little tiny one, so I'm just going to take a copy from there and move that up to there. So I think we're looking pretty good now. I'm just going to zoom back out, so I'm going to hit the magnifying glass and fit screen. I think we've got a good image there. I'm going to pass it back to Lightroom. So to send the image back into Lightroom, we go to File, Close, and we hit Return, and that will effectively save it back into Lightroom. So it's important that you don't, as I say, you don't use a save as, because it will need to resynchronize back into Lightroom. So there we go, the image is back into Lightroom. Pretty happy with what we've done. Just going to press I to get rid of the information from up there. So a couple of last quick tweaks that we'll do to this image, because now it's a TIFF image, because we've sent it back from Photoshop. Sometimes it comes as PNG. You can select TIFF or PNG. There's no real difference. I just prefer to use TIFF. We'll do some final editing on this. I'm going to add a little bit of vibrance, not too much, and then I'm going to bring down the highlights just a little bit more there, and open up the shadows just a little bit. Check my whites by holding down the Option or Alt key again. Bring that up so the lights are illuminated. There we go, and just check the blacks there. A little bit of black in there is good. Going to pop in a mask for the sky, so I'm going to select the sky. Okay, so the sky's selected, and then I'm going to go to the sky in the mask here, click the three dots, intersect with a linear gradient, so I can pull a linear gradient down from the top like this, just on the sky, where I can add a bit more blue to the right hand side. Looks nice. And maybe darken it just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit in there. I'm going to create another. This time I'm just going to have a straightforward linear from the top down and just darken that top a little bit. There we go. Just bring that in just a little bit like that. I'm actually going to throw some clarity into that as well, just to bring that sky alive a little bit more. Create another mask, another linear gradient up from the bottom. Same thing. Going to reduce the exposure a little bit, add a little bit of blue in there, nothing too much, maybe a little bit of orange, and a little bit of contrast there, and some clarity. Looking good. Okay, so last couple of things just to finish off. Firstly, I promised you a sun in the sky, so we'll add a sun to this. I'm just going to drop the yellow down a little bit on saturation in the HSL, not too much, just a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do to put a sun in the sky is we're going to go to create a new mask, and we're going to select a radial gradient, and we're going to place a reasonable size radial in the sky like that to create a glow, as though the sun was there. So I'm going to add a little bit more orange there, and I'm going to bring up the exposure just to make the sky a little bit brighter there. I'm going to take a copy of that, so duplicate the mask, and I'm going to bring that down and place it in the equal place in the water down here, and make it again just slightly brighter, so it's similar, and a little bit yellow one. There we go. Then I'm going to create another mask, and this time I'm going to select again a radial gradient, and I'm going to take a small sun-sized circle. There we go. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit using the Option or Alt key and wheeling the mouse. So I think I have to be actually out of that to do that, so let's just positive in there, go back, there we go, there's the sun. So we need to place it in the center of that bright patch that we made, and then we can boost the exposure again just to make it a little bit brighter there. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. So it's looking good. And then I'm going to use the space bar so I can move down. Oh, before I do, I'm going to copy that as well. So duplicate the mask, that's it, and bring that down here and place it where the sun is, down here as well. But because it's in the water, the image is going to be distorted slightly, so we're going to extend and make it a little bit wider. I'm going to back the brightness off a little bit here now. In fact, I can even make that a little bit bigger. There we go, add a bit of yellow to that as well. So if I zoom out, you can see that we've got the sun in the sky, and we've got the reflection in the water there. If anything, we probably want to just alter those a little bit more. I think we'll select the one below before, just make that a bit bigger, a little bit brighter. And then the sun, which was the copy of mask 5, just going to make that a little bit bigger and not quite so bright. There we go. It's got a nice reflection there in the water. So yeah, so that's looking pretty good. I think might just make this one a little bit wider as well, just to get a bigger glow from the sun. And I'll click done. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Going to make one last adjustment there, just on the sun. It's gonna not quite so bright. There we go. A little bit more yellow up there. There we go. That looks good. So very last thing to do is just to make sure that the bridge is level. I think there's a slight skew there to the image. So we're going to go to the crop tool. We're going to go to the angle tool within the crop tool, and we're going to take a click from the end of the bridge there, draw it across and put it where the end of the bridge will be there. And I think it'll be about there. Click done. There we go. So I think that's it. I think we've completed the image. I might just looking at it add a vignette in from effects, post crop vignette. I can just bring in a little bit more darkness around and then just feather that out, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to make that full screen. So thanks for your time and following along with me. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and subscribe if you could, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much. Bye bye.